Earth's mightiest heroes have some of the most amazing superpowers in the universe. I mean, who doesn't get goosebumps whenever Thor fries his enemies with lightning or Doctor Strange does his hands twirly thing? It's incredible. But just because the Avengers have powers that allow them to save the world every other week doesn't mean they're all winners. Sometimes being an all-powerful superhero who's been around for decades means you accumulate some pretty useless abilities. So what are some of the Avengers' worst superpowers? Have they ever helped them in a fight? And just what situation would they use them in? Well, let's get into it right now. So I want to kick this off by talking about the late great Tony Stark. Now, his arc in the MCU basically bookended the first 3 phases of this superhero franchise. He went from a genius billionaire playboy weapons dealer to a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist superhero. That's a pretty solid transformation, and although he was accused early on of never being the guy to make the sacrifice play, he proved on a few occasions that he was willing to give his life for others. But I know what you're about to say to me. Hey, CBR voice, this video is all about useless Avenger powers and Tony Stark doesn't have any powers. Well, to that I say you're technically right. Tony Stark is an average human being, unless you count the Extremist storyline where the Extremist tech was stored in his bones, but on the whole, he's just a super intelligent guy with rockin' facial hair. But he does make an abundance of Iron Man suits and has made some incredible upgrades to them over the years. Though, as with anything, there will always be a few duds here and there. So I'm going to talk about Tony Stark's most useless Iron Man suit for this entry, and that's gotta be his stealth armor. Right off the bat, what about Tony Stark screams stealthy to you? He's the type of flashy personality who likes to announce at press conferences that he's Iron Man and enter battles with literal gods blasting AC/DC music. So yeah, stealth isn't Tony's cup of tea. But that doesn't mean he never tried. In the comics, Tony tried out the Model 7 armor for secret missions, but it lacks all the fundamentals you would expect from an Iron Man suit. It prioritizes concealment over offense, which means the original version had absolutely no weapons system installed, and it was overall much flimsier and fragile than your normal Iron Man armor. Seriously, should you ever look at an Iron Man suit and think it's flimsy? No, that defeats the whole purpose of Iron Man and limits what we love about Tony the character. So that's why this suit is the most useless in Tony's arsenal. Steve Rogers is the perfect symbol for what a superhero should be. He wasn't a genius billionaire playboy who suddenly went through a life-changing altercation. He wasn't born into royalty in Asgard. No, he was just a scrawny kid from Brooklyn who desperately wanted to serve his country during World War II. Even though he had the body of a child not old enough to see R-rated movies yet, he had a more important quality to him: a good heart. Well, to be honest, not in the literal sense. When he was still a pipsqueak, we learned he had asthma, scarlet fever, rheumatic fever, high blood pressure, and overall heart trouble. So, I mean, he figuratively had a good heart. But it turns out that was all he needed to become one of the greatest Avengers ever. You see, an important element of the Super Soldier Serum is how it amplifies what's already in your heart. If you're a good person, it's going to make you even more good. But if you have any selfishness or dream of glory, then Erskine's formula will probably warp your mind into something unrecognizable. Just look at US Agent and his descent into madness. Anyways, Steve got the Super Soldier Serum and definitely filled out. His body grew into peak hunk, and he gained an abundance of superpowers like super strength, enhanced speed, stamina, and overall durability. He's not quite bulletproof, but in the MCU, every villain he's ever faced has had terrible aim, so I guess that's not a serious problem. But I guess seriously, what happens if someone unloaded a machine gun into the MCU's Steve Rogers? I've always wondered that. And I guess he also got the superpower to be excellent at math? Yeah, it's been said his mind works quicker now, and he can analyze situations better than your normal person, but I still don't understand how he can throw the shield with such pinpoint accuracy and have it bounce around like it's in a pinball machine before returning to his arm. But hey, Sam Wilson and US Agent could do this too, so I guess it's not a super soldier thing. But all those super soldier powers I've mentioned are incredible, but that doesn't mean it's all perfect. It does come with one useless power that Cap probably wishes it wouldn't. He can't get drunk. The serum burns through his metabolism so fast and heals him in such a way where alcohol won't have a lasting effect on the super soldier. And that's a serious bummer. That's only useful if Captain America was a big spy type of person and liked to infiltrate situations. If that was the case, he could pretend to drink a lot and pretend to be drunk in order to give himself the upper hand. But seriously, it's Captain America. The guy is more of a let's go into the situation directly instead of being super stealthy. So that makes this power useless to him. It would serve Black Widow or Hawkeye better than Steve. Now all it does is create a horrible side effect of when he's around all his other Avengers who are partying it up and goofing around, he can't let loose a little bit. But of course that means no hangover ever, which is a nice consolation prize, I guess. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Say what you will, but I think Spider-Man has the best theme song out of any Marvel hero. Okay, fine, Captain America's theme song comes a close second. Anyways, Spider-Man is a fan favorite character for a reason. On one hand, you have the super relatable Peter Parker, whose constant struggle to pay his bills and to live a semi-normal life is often disrupted by his dedication to saving New York from criminals. But there's always a sense with Spider-Man that whenever he does win, he often loses in some way, which makes his commitment to using his great power for great responsibility even more admirable. It's why we love the character so much, why there's been so many reboots, and why Marvel and Sony are constantly in an endless war trying to figure out how to share the rights to the character. Power-wise, as mentioned, Spider-Man can do whatever a spider can, meaning he can swing from a web that he makes himself in almost all incarnations except for the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. He's super strong, agile, durable, sarcastic, and has a spider sense that helps him avoid danger. You know, just like all spiders have. It's why whenever you see a spider on your wall and you turn your back for 1 second to grab a shoe or something to smash it with, and then you turn back and the spider is gone. Yeah, just so you know, that's all because the spider sensed you were about to kill it and ran away and will probably seek revenge against you while you're sleeping, so keep that in mind. But seriously, Spider-Man is an incredible hero and one of the best around. So what would I say is Spider-Man's most useless power? Well, I think it's his ability to talk to spiders. Now, granted, this is a power that isn't common and only shows itself in certain comics and certain situations. But the Peter Parker character has been able to talk to spiders in particular circumstances. And why do I think this is useless? Well, for one, he's just talking to spiders. It's not like he can control a spider army to do his bidding. But then again, if you could do that, then I would consider him more of a villain, right? Like if you saw a hero controlling an army of spiders, it wouldn't matter if that hero is super quippy and likable. You'd be terrified. Did you know the Hulk can see ghosts? It's true. And if you're thinking, what could a rampaging, sort of mindless rage monster who only gets stronger the angrier he gets do with the ability to see ghosts? Well, pretty much nothing. The Hulk's whole character is that he's an insanely powerful brute that isn't afraid to punch and smash anything in his path. It doesn't matter if it's giant Chitauri space worms, huge fire demons, or even Thor himself. Hulk just likes to fight, which is why I think his ability to see ghosts is his most useless power. Now, mostly the ghost the Hulk sees is that of his father, a character that hasn't been introduced in the MCU, but also this ability has helped Hulk see Doctor Strange while the character was in the astral plane, which would just be trippy to see in the MCU. Imagine Doctor Strange floating around in his astral projection form, and then the Hulk of all people can see him and interact with him. It's a truly bizarre power that you wouldn't expect from the Hulk, right? Like if I told you the Hulk could harden his skin into tough scales or punch a planet into making it explode, you'd probably believe that, right? Because it fits into what we think about the Hulk. But if I tell you he can see ghosts, that's definitely a head scratcher. Oh, just don't tell Korg, okay? I heard he hates spooky ghosts. For a long time, Hawkeye was the Avenger who was the butt of everyone's jokes. Yes, that's because he's mainly just a bow and arrow guy standing next to Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and the Hulk. But you didn't see the same type of jokes being made toward Black Widow. And I think that's mainly because Hawkeye had such a lackluster debut in the MCU. After his cameo in Thor, Hawkeye got a leading role in the Avengers, but he spent most of that film's runtime as a brainwashed goon for Loki. And even though he displayed why he was so dangerous as a villain, I mean, he took down the helicarrier with like one arrow, which I guess is more of a design flaw for the helicarrier than indicative of Hawkeye's skill, but whatever. The next few appearances really tried to build up Hawkeye, almost to the point where Age of Ultron often felt like Hawkeye and his amazing friends saved the day. Seriously, Clint got all the best lines, the best moments, was called the heart of the team, etc. in that movie. And now he's getting his own Disney Plus show? Who would have thought, right? But Hawkeye is a lot like Iron Man, where he doesn't have powers, so I'm I'm going to use this entry to talk about what I think is Hawkeye's most useless arrow. The legendary archer has a whole assortment of regular and trick arrows. From the MCU, we've seen explosive arrows, hacker arrows, and even powerful force field arrows that were used to briefly trap Vision. And the comics have an even wider array with things like acid arrows, net arrows, sonar arrows, just basically a whole lot of arrows. But I think his most useless has got to be the boomerang arrow. I'm sorry, although it's fun to see an arrow miss but then circle around and come back, I think that takes away a bit of the allure of seeing Hawkeye have amazing accuracy. Plus, if he's making arrows into boomerangs, then Captain Boomerang will jump universes to have a serious talk about copyright infringement. Although modern Thor comics have made it so Thor is his own character, that wasn't always the case. Back in the early days of Thor comics, Thor did have a secret identity and posed as the human Donald Blake. What happened was, much like we saw in the Thor movie, Thor was sent to Earth to learn how to become worthy, only he didn't have the memories of Thor. He thought he was just a human named Donald Blake. And once Thor learned of his true identity, he used his hammer to transform back and forth from Thor to Donald Blake when the character wanted to have an alter ego on Earth. Now, again, modern stories have abandoned this plot point and have even made Donald Blake his own separate character apart from Thor. So I would call the ability to transform into a human secret identity is Thor's most useless power. I mean, come on, it has to be, right? Thor has one of the most impressive skill sets out of any Avenger with his godlike strength, speed, durability, and his lightning skills. He could easily make the case for why he's the most powerful Avenger. So that's why I think any power that transforms him out of his Asgardian form and into a plain old human body is his most useless. Plus, if you look like Chris Hemsworth, then why in the world would you want to try to conceal your identity? It just doesn't make sense, people. If Scott Lang was a little more of a ruthless strategist and less of a goofy everyman, then Ant-Man would be the most powerful Avenger. The technology that Scott has at his disposal is incredible, and while yes, it relates to just shrinking and growing, it makes Scott almost unbeatable, and able to beat just about any Avenger. The recent What If Disney Plus show showed us that Ant-Man can eliminate any hero with ease, including the Hulk, who basically has been shown to be near indestructible. So that's why when it comes to Ant-Man, his most useless power is the fact that he can amplify his voice. Really, this power is just a way to help people hear him when he's microscopic. But really, that power has become useless in the modern age since he has a built-in comms device in his helmet. That makes the need to amplify his voice so people can hear him absolutely pointless, thanks to modern technology for the upgrade. Still, I guess it would be a little frightening for people to suddenly hear a booming voice coming from a little dust speck on your counter, right? Even so, given everything else Ant-Man can do, the amplified voice is nothing. Okay, Doctor Strange's most useless power is only useless in the MCU for now, but could change depending on who the villain is for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Really, what I'm trying to do is will Nightmare into existence, okay? I'm hoping by highlighting how useless Doctor Strange's sleep protection ability is now, that will spur an angry Multiverse of Madness writer, who are avid watchers of these videos I'm sure, to write Nightmare into the movie. So remember, if Nightmare shows up, thank CBR. Anyways, yes, right now Doctor Strange's most useless power is his sleep protection spell. In the comics, he uses this to help keep him safe while sleeping, but I think it's his most useless power because he has to keep reapplying it every time he goes to sleep. You would think a powerful sorcerer like Strange would come up with a long-lasting spell, right? Also, in the MCU, his sleep protection spell is a little useless because any outside threat that tries to hurt Strange when he's passed out will immediately get a face full of cloak, thanks to the cloak of levitation that's always around Strange and protecting him. Scarlet Witch had a rocky start in the MCU, but now not only is she a major player, but she's also potentially the most powerful being on Earth. Her chaos magic has the ability to rewrite reality itself, and the last we saw her, she was working hard at understanding and controlling her power, which will only make her stronger the next time we see her. So, given that her chaos magic can reshape the multiverse as we know it, I want to highlight a useless power from the early comic days of Scarlet Witch. Back when the character was first created, a lot of her abilities revolved around her causing bad luck for the people around her. Gotta wake up early for a big meeting? Whoops, your alarm clock became unplugged overnight. You want to watch a Thor movie on Disney Plus? Whoops, right when you turn it on, the only one available to stream is Thor: The Dark World. So, given all that Scarlet Witch has become, and as she continues to grow more powerful, I'm going to chalk up her bad luck abilities as her most useless power. Did you know Vision is a master of hand-to-hand combat? That's one of his powers, but honestly, I find that incredibly useless when you're an all-powerful vibranium synthezoid who harnesses the Mind Stone most of the time to create devastating blasts that can cut Mad Titans in half and paralyze Tony Stark's friends. Vision can also shapeshift, change his density, and phase through solid objects, and all of those make it so that really Vision will never have to be in a fistfight. Like, so what if he's a master in all kinds of martial arts? What does that matter? It's not like if he's fighting another martial arts master that they're going to be in the same league as Vision, because really, Vision fights heavy hitters where his hand-to-hand combat skills aren't the deciding factor in the fight. So in that regard, it's the most useless.